Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to round 4 of the Octane Online Racing Sprint Series at Kyalami. My name is Tim Gobe. Joining me in the Cosbox today is the one and only Glenn Germain, and assisting me with the comms will be John Gormley. John, how are you?
Nah, I don't think so. No, I'm feeling great. I'm great. I am, man, looking at the track today. Now, qualifying just got away. It's wet. It's Kyalami. Welcome to South Africa. Watch out for bisons. And it's still light out, which is lucky for us because after quali and during the race, it's going to be a lot harder for everybody else to see.
Definitely agree. It's definitely wet and juicy out there. Obviously, the qualifying session, you're going to see some fast times. We're expecting to see perhaps a 45 from the top end. The first few laps, however, track's still going to be wet, as we see a couple of cars off the track as they're starting to back up to throw in their bankers. As the 326...
No overtaking is allowed during quali.
Well,
we'll see.
Yes and no. On your out lap, you are allowed to just do it in a safe manner, make sure the driver in front of you lets you past. But as we see some of these drivers now going in for their bankers, as they're still backing up at Cheetah. So obviously we're at split yellow, split SRO, split stacked. Plenty of fast drivers, a lot of drivers in general are on here. I think we have, maybe 40, maybe not quite 40, as we still see the number. So we have 33 drivers on track tonight on Kyalami. Fantastic track, fantastic weather. Qualifying in the day, however, the race itself should be at night. So this should be quite exciting. What do you think, John?
It will be. Now I'm just looking at, obviously people who have practiced for wet times will arguably way better than people who haven't, because wet is a really painting dynamic, but with this many cars on track, it shouldn't be too bad, considering there should be a drying line on the racing line, correct?
That is correct. Obviously, once the cars start going on, especially with 33 cars on track, that will be a very nice dry line. That also means if you were setting up your pressures and were driving on your own, your pressures are going to be completely wrong. So there is a good chance during qualifying that they are going to adjust their pressures for their drier line. Obviously, as we're looking at Eshan Lele, I think he is currently on his flying lap. Now, the wet, the great thing about the wet is that it's mostly about driver skill. The car does not have that much of an impact. Now, obviously, there is going to be a couple cars that are going to be slightly better in the wet, but it's mostly driver skill. Just because, let's say, you're driving a Porsche doesn't mean you're going to be a god on the wet. There are drivers in cars such as, let's say, the Mustang, which does not enjoy wet conditions as much as the Porsche. However, like we said, there is going to be a drying line, so this should close the gap a little bit.
I've got a question. I've got one question for you and then one question for our overseers at OOR. They're not going to answer me today, but we've gotten Kyalami 2 times in the last 3 seasons, and both of those times it's been wet. I haven't even driven the track in the dry yet. And now a question for you, Tim. What sort of time should we be expecting from the different classes?
That's a great question. As we see, Felipa already doing a 46.3, and that, I'm pretty sure that was her first lap. So I was thinking 45s, but I think there is a chance for a 44 today from Felipa, perhaps Lucas Keys as well. As we see the top of the grid, they are pretty close to each other. Lucas Keys 0.2 behind Felipa, so they're both on 46s. As we see the Aston of, I think that is Atanayake, going off track. So those are just the wet conditions for you. The track is extremely slippy. You got to be very, very smooth on throttle. Aston, one of those cars that's very good on the wet, obviously. But, you know, you still need decent driving technique. You can't just slam on the throttle and just pray. As we see Felipa currently on a 46 flat. So the track is drying. The times are getting faster. As we see, I think that was the McLaren of Eshan Lele going off track as Felipa goes back into the pits. As we're now looking at Lucas Keys currently going around the... Which corner is that? Nope, that is not the final corner. My bad. That is turn 10. Look up as he goes through the back straight, going through mineshaft. Oh, nope, he just went through turn 11. Sorry, I'm not the best connoisseur of Kyalami. I know there are people that know this track much better than I do. I do love the track, however, as he now goes through mineshaft. Or was that crocodile? No, that was sunset.
You know, there's something really useful at the top right of the screen, right over there under Kyalami round 4.
You know what? You make a good point there. So I'm gonna stop making a fool out of myself and just look at the top part of my screen, as I am obviously not looking as we see Lucas going for the S's, as he's currently 0.5 tenths up. So the track is definitely drying as he now goes through turn 10 into Lukop as he goes through turn 11, as he still gains time, and that's looking like he's got a bit of a banker. It so far not looking like it's gonna beat Felipe's time, but it's still 0.6 up.
Now, do you think we'll see a repeat of Spa where people will just keep finding more and more time closer to the end of qualifying? Because Felipe and Lucas both found massive amounts of time compared to the 5 minutes previous before quali ended as Spa round 1.
Oh, definitely. As we see Lucas currently 1 second up, so this time is going to be a 45 if he can stick the last corner, and looks like he has, so it's definitely going to be the first 45 of the session. And Lucas Keys with the fastest lap of the session so far with provisional pole with a 45.597. He is absolutely flying, and let's see if he has more time in the bag.
Yeah, I'd like to see these. So at the moment, Pip is in second runner-up, and then there's Babby in a Fez. I don't ever remember Babby driving a Fez. And then there's Benjamin Hignett, Aaron Lee in the silver. Yeah, that guy is. I don't think that guy's silver pace. He's consistently in the top 10s every single race so far in quali that we've seen this season. So we'd have to see his performance this round as well.
I'm not sure. Perhaps it's his first season. I don't remember Aaron Lee. Maybe he's raced here in the past, but I have not seen him ever since I started racing here. So it might have been his first race, his first season, excuse me. But yeah, as I've been told, he has been around for a while. Maybe he just came back, put himself as silver, but he's obviously got the pace to keep up with these guys. Obviously, it doesn't help. Well, it does help that it's the wet. The wet is where you really start seeing driver skill between one each other. Some drivers may be fast in the dry, but they don't practice the wet, and that's where I personally think true skill shows between these drivers. So it should be good, interesting. As you see Lucas Keys still gaining time, so track is definitely getting drier. It also helps as he's in a fantastic car in the wet, as he's currently finding 2 tenths maybe on the exit, not quite 2, but that's still 1.5 tenths up on the exit of the final corner, and that's another banker with a 45.467. So Lucas Keys currently looking like he's on fire, as Felipe now has 6 tenths to find to beat his time for provisional pole.
Now, just to mention, they've also still have 2 laps left. So if Lucas or Felipe squeeze in a final lap, that'll probably be the best conditions.
Yeah, I definitely agree, but we'll also have to see, because now we have a few cars back in the pit, so now there's more time for that track to gain back some water. Maybe some people are just happy with their qualifying, they think it's over, they can't do better, or perhaps they had incidents and think it's not worth going back out. But as we see, Felipe currently 2 tenths up, but it's not going to be enough for now. She finds massive gain through, I think that was a clubhouse. She's now 3.5 tenths up, but she is going to have to find over 6 tenths up. We have Steven Tai now taking provisional P2. Let's see if it lasts. If Felipe can't stick this lap, she will take the time back, the place back from Steven Tai, but she's going to have to find much more than this to get provisional pole, and she will only have 1 more lap after this if she does not manage to get it this lap.
Yeah, how does the Ferrari fare in the wet, the Fezes, the 296s? Because at the moment in our top 10, I can only see that to the 8th at the moment, but there's already 3 Ferraris up there, and the Aston Martin, well-known good wet car. Lamborghini, unknown to me. All I know is that it drives really well from the people who've driven it, told me. And the McLaren also heard bad brakes, but maybe good in the wet too, as Felipe is approaching Crocodile right now.
Having driven the Ferrari in the past, it felt all right in the wet. Driving the Porsche now, the Porsche does feel better, but the Ferrari doesn't wheel spin the same way. Like let's say as Felipe just mistake there and just loses all her time. She's still going to gain time, and that is not to be, as she will have one more lap to respond to pole, as she's still on a 46. So I've heard the BMW is also not the greatest car in the wet, so she has another challenge with that, as we see Stephen Tai still gaining a bit of time here and there. Still no answer to Lucas's massive pace difference, though. As we've talked about in the past, Lucas does love these wet conditions, and he's in one of the best, if not the best car for it.
Yeah, it's almost like the Aston's really good in the wet, and that's why he's 5/10 ahead. Nah, he just has that much talent, because no matter how good the car is, wet comes down to skill.
Definitely good. He still has time in him.
A smidgen of green.
Not massive gains, but still gains nonetheless. Every little bit counts for these pro drivers. It's possible that Felipe just finds a second in her time, and obviously he's going to be very happy if he manages to get pole, because the last few races he's had with Felipe's been ahead, so it's definitely a good change of pace for him and for the championship for him to be ahead, as he gains 1/10 there, and for the final corner gains almost another tenth, but he's still going to be 1/10 up. Maybe not quite a tenth up, but it's still going to be a gain, and that's another fastest lap for Lucas Keys with a 45.390. So these guys behind are going to have their work cut out for them, as we see Felipe not managing to find the time to beat Lucas Keys. So as we see Glory Babby taking provisional P2 for now, as we see Stephen Tai has gone back to the pit, so it's looking like Glory Babby will get P2 for this race, as Felipe just gains massive time. She's now in the 45, so she gets P2 with a 45.927. So she did manage to find a response to Stephen Tai and Glory Babby, just not quite fast enough to get P1. And that looks like, as we have a few more cars in the back, as we're currently looking at the Ferrari of Luke Johnson, as he's currently P7, and that looks like qualifying over.
Now embrace the light while you can, folks, because it's about to get real dark, and today we've got a special treat. Glenn will give us plenty of onboard and cockpit views, because you really have to see it from their perspective to truly understand what they're going through. And we just hope this isn't going to be a repeat of Eau Rouge at Spa. Not even Eau Rouge, before Eau Rouge. We'll see.
I've long-time members of ORs and a few members now that clip has been posted in the Academy chat room before their race. But we have had an interesting incident in the past at Kyalami in the dark, in the wet, where there was a bit of a car park around the turn 3, turn 4 area. Let's hope that this doesn't happen. But if you've never driven in the wet, the outside footage doesn't give these guys justice. If you do see one of the onboards of cars following each other, especially with 33 cars on track following, is going to be a great challenge because of the spray.
As we can see, all the cars are lined up. 33 racers, an hour of racing. One mandatory pit stop. Is it fixed fuel or tires?
It is
fixed
fixed fuel pit stop. I don't think these guys will be going for tires in the wet. It's unlikely perhaps a couple will be going for tires, because we are going to have quite a dry line. So if they do get their pressures wrong and their tires start overheating, they are definitely going to have to change boots. And it is a 5 second extra time in the pits if you do have to change tires. As we see, it is still daytime, so perhaps Split Yellow might be a bit lucky here, and maybe they won't have to race in the dark, which...
So Kyalami, South Africa, just rolled back their daylight savings, so now it's an hour earlier than sunset.
Unfortunate for us viewers. I'm sure these drivers wouldn't mind. I think they'd be happy to race in the day, especially in wet conditions. The dark definitely does not help, but I'm sure the viewers will be disappointed if these guys do end up racing during the day.
Now, racing during the sunset as well provides its own fair share of consequences, because some specific corners, yeah, the sun's in my eyes, I can't see the braking marker, can't see anything.
If I stop you here, John, I don't think that's going to be an issue, as it is currently overcast with the rain. So I don't think they will get the sun in their eyes. I know in Kyalami, I think it's around turn 10, around that blind corner, if the sun does set there. Or was it sunrise? I don't quite remember. But turn 10 is already a blind corner as it is. If you do have the sun out, it's even harder, because obviously you don't see anything. As currently we have small technical difficulties with the broadcaster here. Ignore what you're seeing on screen, as Lucas Keys leads the formation lap, and after this we're going to get racing. So John, do you reckon this is going to be a clean start? Do you reckon it's going to get messy?
Do you really want me to make a prediction? Because last time I made a prediction came true.
I would love for you to make a prediction. I would love for this race to be interesting.
All right, easy. Filippo will be on Lucas's ass the whole time. That's one. Stephen Tai will probably swap positions once with Glory Babby. Ishan Lele will probably slide out a little bit, get a little bit loose on lap 1. There will definitely be 2 incidents in the midfield, one going wide and one going off track, and there will be a few bumps.
I don't know, that's pretty good.
And Loop D will spin.
We don't want to throw shade on Loop D. He knows how to drive, let's just hope he doesn't spin. As we see, the number 47 is in the pit, so it looks like someone perhaps has forgotten to pit drive before the race, so they're going to have to do a pit lane start. Perhaps it's for their best interest. Perhaps they expect a bit of an incident after turn 2. But let's see what happens. We know a fair few
people now that pit start simply because of just, getting out of issues, and they can make up the lost time with their pace.
That is definitely true. But I don't think they would most people wouldn't voluntarily pit start. Especially in these conditions, passing is going to be much harder, because obviously with the spray, when you're following the car ahead, it's just that much harder to see them, to see when they're braking, to see your own braking markers. So passing in the wet is another challenge in its own. And obviously with the dry line, you're going to have to pass in a wet line, so you will be losing grip as well. So there's just a bunch of different things that happen when you are racing in the wet. It's not just about the track being wet, there's all these other things that could happen.
What's this setting I found right here in my graphical setting? It says here something about spray rain off. Oh, that's nice. No.
That is naughty, and they should not be doing that. Come on. As they are now going too wide, as Lucas Keith leads us around the final corner, as in the back still coming on into their formation. As we're going down the start-finish line, these drivers are going to have to drive over their grid boxes, and eventually we're going to go green for round 4 at Kyalami. It looks like Felipe Bukita just has better drive off the line, so right now she's slightly ahead of Lucas Keys, as looks like they're going 3 wide at the back into turn 2, but Felipe manages to take the lead from Lucas Keys, and so far looking pretty clean. There's a couple bumps here and there going 3 wide through turn 2, but very clean, as we see the Ferrari of Glory Babby hitting a sausage curb.
Stephen Tai going wide.
Yep, Stephen Tai going a bit wide, and that's probably a result from Glory Babby.
There goes Slady.
Slady into the wall, and you know what? That wasn't as bad as it could have been. It looks
We're not out of the lap 1 yet.
There's a couple incidents at the back, but it could have gone much worse than this. So clean start. They're still going 2 wide, perhaps 3 wide at the back there, but so far a pretty clean start, as that Lamborghini and Porsche got really close to each other, really side by side. As now Felipe is ahead of Lucas Keys, so now Lucas Keys has his work cut off for him, because we all know Felipe is a rapid driver. So now Lucas Keys in fact, has a lot of work ahead of him. Perhaps she may have gotten a worse qualifying than Lucas Keys, but that does not mean she will not beat him during the race. Because there's 1 hour to drop. 1 hour. It is a 1 hour race with a mandatory pit stop. So, pretty good lap one.
Just want to say, I think as well, Benjamin Hignett made up 2 positions during that start because he was 5th, if I remember correctly. Babby was in 3rd, and Stephen Tai was in 4th. We'll have to see the replay on that because there are a few incidents, but there was also a few good overtakes as well.
Yeah, I think Hignett just took the opportunity to go ahead when obviously we saw Babby hit that sausage curb, and then it looks like perhaps they hit Stephen Tai, which made Stephen Tai go off track. So this is where Hignett would have gotten their position. So now see that battle ahead. Lucas Keys is going to want to stay as close as possible to Philippa, and perhaps they're going to want to build a gap from the guys behind, because obviously he's going to want that P1 back, but he's going to have to watch out for Benjamin Hignett, which is also close behind him. So perhaps they're going to start working together and maybe get ahead. Perhaps not going to put too
Is the
much pressure on
47
Philippa.
in the pits again, or is that a different number? I see the 7 at the end, but
That
97,
is the
all right.
97, yep.
Oh no, not Paul Kranich, the admin.
Yeah, perhaps Paul Kranich just decided to pit early, get out of traffic, get some clean air, and hopefully gain time. But he's going to have to get out quick because these guys are now going through turn 11 as Paul Kranich is now out of the pit. So it could be a
Doing the
strategic
ultimate
move.
undercut. The undercut to end all undercuts.
Yeah, so he's going to be a bit lonely for a while, as most of these guys will probably pit. I dare say towards the end of the race, as there is an incident at turn 10, that is the 175 is currently off the track. Unsure what happened there. Looks like they perhaps spun, but that puts them at the back of the pack, and maybe they will also have some damage from that. So that's just the wet coming into action there. So there's, especially the first few laps, there's not as much grip. If you've been practicing with a lot of cars on track, obviously you're gonna be used to that specific grip level. They've definitely got their work cut out for them.
Now, do you think Lucas... So Lucas will most likely pit 1 lap or the same time as Philippa if he is still stuck behind her, correct?
Perhaps. I know they're going to be running, if it's a
50-50 split, or?
no, since the pit stop is a fixed timer, so they are looking at 50-50. So we see an incident perhaps on the formation lap. That's the 33 of Perkins. It looks like he sends a bit too fast around Sunset and spins on the formation lap. So that is very unfortunate for Perkins. That is not what you want happening, especially on the formation lap. That is unlucky for Perkins, but that's just him being maybe a bit of a silly goose, maybe a bit too excited.
Has Perkins pitted for repairs yet, or are they driving with the... Oh, okay, they are continuing on with the damage they're enduring.
So they do have a flappy bonnet as well, so this is going to affect their straight line speed. However, in the wet, you're not going as fast anyway, so maybe they feel that like the car is fine, they can keep up with the car ahead, but it's going to put them under pressure definitely from the cars behind him, as they will not have a top speed issue down the straights.
Now, Tim, how would you go about overtaking somebody at Kyalami here? Do you just have to force a mistake?
There's definitely good overtaking opportunities at Kyalami. This corner is one of them, nice and wide. In the wet, however, you probably want to force a mistake. It's not going to be easy, as they are going to have to go onto the wet line to pass the car ahead, and obviously the spray and all these other factors that come into play when racing in the wet obviously makes overtaking much more difficult. It's not impossible, it's just much riskier.
But this is also like professionals we're talking about, because Philippa, esports champion, Oh, Steven Tai in pits. Also, Basinski in pits as well. Now, it won't be too much longer. I'd say it's about a few more laps. Actually, no. Actually, about like 10 more laps. Felipe will catch up to Pablo, the back marker.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility. As we see another incident at the back, that's the number 88. Who's the number? That is Jaden Rondinella. Oh no, John. It looks like Jaden Rondinella has in fact spun it.
Lucas is sliding
sideways there. But it looks like
12,
he has managed to... He's managed to save it, thankfully. But he's now Jaden Rondinella under pressure from the Porsche of... Who is that? I think that's the Porsche of Murphy. Really going side by side. Oh, that is a very, very ballsy move over there. You don't have much grip. When the track is dry, that is a flat out corner. When it is wet, in a few cars you can do it flat out, but in most cars you're going to do a little lift. But
now you can see just how much bigger the GTR is as well than the Porsche. The Porsche has the superior wet traction and wet driving, but Lupti's really making that GTR wide, and he's driving well. He managed to keep the position, but now he's just got to follow up burn and try to make back whatever he lost. I think he was 12th, and now he's 23rd, so that is a solid chunk he's going to have to work back.
So he's not had the best Silverstone either. He's had a couple bad races, and it's just down to being unlucky. This time, however, it looked more like perhaps a mistake of his own. But I've been told he likes to cheat. As we see, a pink Aston Martin also spun around. So all these drivers currently struggling for grip. That is the number 4. Who is the number 4? That's the number 4 of M. Clark. Spun around. Looking like they're trying... Yep, so now they're reversing. They know the track is cleared. They did the correct thing. They held their brakes.
Maybe an ignition issue as well, because that happens to some cars.
Let's hope not. I think he's just spun it. But yeah, as we see the gap between Felipe and Lucas now, it has...
And once again, Lucas, he's really sliding that thing, huh?
Yeah, as we see the Aston of Clark again, he's not having the best time in the world. And we know he's on wet tires as we see the green lining, which indicates that those are wet tires. So he's definitely checking the right tire. Perhaps his rears are overheating with the slides, so he's not having the best time. As now Paul Kranich, was that Paul Kranich or was that... No, I think that was Ashley Vediger, now gets past that Aston of Clark. So they've not had the best race so far, and looks like they have some front end damage as well. As we're back with Lucas Keys, goes very wide there, very slidey. So I'm wondering if these wet conditions, maybe these drivers weren't expecting them to be this wet, especially with this many cars, but it's looking like a lot of these guys are actually struggling in these conditions.
Does the temperature also make a difference for racing in the wet? Because it is track temperature is 17 Celsius at the moment, as we're on board with Babby following Pigment.
Yes, definitely track temperatures do have an impact, but 16 Celsius ambient at 17 track, they're pretty good conditions for setting fast times. So I think it's just the track being a lot wetter than a lot of these people expect. As we see, Babby goes very wide there. So they're also struggling, and that just gives Lele the run down the inside to try and perhaps get past Babby, as they will also have the inside down here as they go side by side. But once again, for this one particular flat-out corner, is not there in a heavy braking zone into Crocodile, and Lele does manage to get the position of Babby. So
Josh Holmes as well in the Bentley just had some weird control issues. It looks like it. The Bentley was just going left to right. Another really good car in the wet, an underdog.
So I'm wondering if adrenaline, if they're just pushing the cars really hard, or they just haven't really practiced in these conditions. I know a lot of drivers, and not particularly fond of Kyalami. I'm looking at you, JC. In fact, I know a lot of drivers that aren't the biggest fans. As you see, Holmes goes sideways again, as we have a replay of Lucas Keys with their Tokyo Drift. Very good to manage to keep it straight and keep it on track there. So obviously other drivers not having as much luck as Lucas Keys to keep it on track, as we're back looking at Joshua Holmes as he's sliding once again, as we have our first penalty of the race, a 10-second penalty for Thomas Furstuck for a collision on lap 1.
Now, Babby is really trying to get the position back from Lele. And we'll have to see. Lele looks to be not too far from Hignett, but not too close either. Philippa and Keys have pulled away from the rest. But because of that little slide that we just saw in replay, Lucas did lose a second because of that. Because it's just all about being consistent.
Yeah, Lucas has lost a second, and that also means Lucas is out of that slipstream from Philippa, which is definitely not ideal. At the same time, however, now he has a better view of the track. He'll be able to see his braking markers much better.
We'll just have to keep going as somebody just went fully wide over onto the grass at Cheetah.
Now, also, Philippa just set a 45.9. That's exactly the same time that she has set during qualifying. So perhaps that's also a different strategy. God, strategy, yes. Strategy between Philippa and Lucas Keys. Perhaps Lucas Keys just has more fuel in the fuel tank, and Philippa decided to do a shorter stint and maybe do an overcut on Lucas.
Fun fact: English is not Tim's first language,
And
so you can bully him. It's not your third language.
It is my third language. It is very much
trilingual. You try too hard, as we're watching Babby go through Sunset and then going up to, was it Clubhouse? Yeah, there we go.
Yep, that's Clubhouse. Looks like Lele is pulling a small gap on Babby, so Babby definitely struggling in these conditions, and Lele closing the gap on Benjamin Hignett. So what Lele is going to want to do is probably pressure Hignett into a mistake. That is definitely the safest way to pass someone on a wet track, is just staying behind their gearbox and pressuring the driver ahead to do the tiniest of mistakes, obviously, perhaps outbrake themselves, but Lele really on the back of that Ferrari. So the Ferrari is looking like struggling a bit more than the McLaren. Obviously, these drivers, definitely not bad drivers. They definitely know how to set quick times around tracks. As Lucas now has the fastest time with a 45.597, and it's looking like, if we're looking at the track, it's looking like Lucas definitely has closed the gap on Philippa. So I think we're going to have another big battle ahead of us, as we see Philippa now much closer to.
Sean Lele goes for a send down the inside. Let's see if she can. Let's see if they can hold it. Hignett getting it back inside outside action. Lele back on the inside. This is.
Oh, this could get nasty very quick. It's looking like
Hignett's wide and Babby's in too.
Yep, definitely Babby saw that happening. It's like, yep, I'm gonna join in on this little battle as they go side by side down Sunset. This can only end in disaster, but looks like Babby lifts off the throttle and lets Hignett ahead. That could have gone horribly there. So far, Hignett losing a position to Lele, but it's not the end of the world. They're still ahead of Babby as they go a bit wide there. As Babby just has better drive, gets much closer to Hignett, and now goes down the inside for turn 10. Hignett defending and just closes, but he goes a bit deep on the brakes, and that just gives Babby the opportunity to get a drive down the straight.
Babby sliding.
Also loses traction on the rear, slides a bit, and that just gives a bit more breathing space for Hignett, and Hignett just manages to hold on to that position for at least another lap. As now,
and here comes Josh Holmes.
Of Joshua Holmes now starting to get involved in that little battle between Hignett and Babby, as Lele now starts to build a gap to the Ferrari of Hignett.
Now we gotta really pay attention now, because this is getting interesting. But at the moment, our top three is Philippa Bokita, Lucas Keys, and Ashan Lele. top 3 for silver is Aaron Lee, Wesley Yao, and Jay Sweeney in the Mustang. Pretty tough to drive it fast in the wet. Our top 3 for Pro-Am is Stephen Lewis, W. Pisciato, and John Stockton. And our top for Am, Torindo Tanayake in the Aston Martin, followed by Ivan Lee in the Beamer, and Jay Byrne in the Lambo.
You had a bit of a lift there, John, when you said Aston Martin.
What did I say? Aston Martin?
Yes, that's exactly what you said. It's looking like we have a very good battle coming up ahead. This is not a 3-car battle anymore. It looks like we potentially have a 5-car battle for P4 now, as it's looking like Benjamin Higdon is closing up on Lele a bit, so Lele maybe with a bit of a mistake. It's looking like a 5-way battle as Luke Johnson slowly creeps up on the back of that boat. Now, the Bentley, very good in the wet, obviously, we've talked about, so that is a fitting name for that car, as everyone calls it the boat. So what better conditions to have that car than in the wet?
Now, you can't tell it is getting slightly darker, because it's been 17 minutes now since the race has started. It's getting a little dusky. The spray is starting to get real annoying, and I'm pretty sure Babby's annoyed at that Ferrari in front of him as well.
Honestly, we've been a bit scammed by the organizers of this race because it was supposed to be dark around this time. It's been almost 20 minutes in the race. It should have been pitch black. All these drivers should have been blind, and perhaps a bit of chaos could have happened here and there.
Yeah, we want our money back for this free stream. Thank you very much.
It's not meant to be for split yellow. Perhaps we'll have different conditions. Here we go for P1. Lucas Keys finds the drive, goes
inside,
down the inside.
Holy moly. And he holds it.
They go side by side, they're very close to each other, but Lucas Keys does manage to take the lead from Felipe Bakita. He's going to be happy about that one. Felipe now back on charge. It's not over yet, as she is still very close to Lucas Keys. So I'm wondering if Felipe perhaps did a bit of a mistake on the final corner, which meant she lost all her drive, and that just gave Lucas Keys the run to get that pass done. But now she'll definitely be on attack mode and try to get it back on Lucas, as they do have a very healthy gap behind them, so they don't have to worry about the McLaren of Ishan Lele behind. So now we've got a very good fight for the lead. It's not often that we see battles for the lead like this. Normally the leader on most races manages to build a big enough gap for them not to have to battle, but we have a proper one happening now, so just stay tuned for this.
Yeah, Lucas worked really hard to get that position back ever since Pip took it from the very beginning, but now he has to fight even harder to keep her behind him. As I think we're approaching some back markers, and there's also an incident at the 101. Another car is spun, and you were saying earlier how forcing a mistake, it's really easy to make a mistake over here, especially in the wet, because you're just used to using the curbs. It's a bit wide. Here we go. Thank you, Glenn, for the miracle overtake, as Lucas has the slipstream, sends it down the inside of the kink, and just manages to really make Pip upbrake as well, and just goes down the inside switchback. Pretty sure that's what that's called. And he holds it, and he does a very good job. They were side by side for a few moments there, but other than that, it was clean.
Yeah, very clean pass, very respectful racing from these two. Yeah, it looked like Felipe just had a bad run down the main straight, because she did have a 1-second gap to Lucas Keys at one point. And it looks like they're finally getting through some back markers. That looks like a Porsche behind them, but they've
That's a big gap as well right now. What happened as well? She must have just lost a few tenths.
Yeah, looking like that BMW perhaps starting to struggle. Maybe she was pushing a bit too hard, and those tires just not happy with how much she was pushing them. But yeah, look, it's looking like Lucas Keys has locked in, as we do see the Mustang of Paul Kranich just ahead of them. So within a couple laps, they will be catching more back markers, and that could make it interesting, because if Lucas Keys does catch him in a corner like Cheetah, he will be losing a bit of time to Felipe, as they will obviously be faster than Paul. Paul driving his own race, and he will have pretty much a full tank at this point, because he did pit within lap 2 of this race. So he will be about, I reckon, 2 seconds slower than these drivers, maybe 3 with that full tank.
Yeah, we do have a few fair people at the bottom now who have pitted. We got Stephen Ty, Dylan McDowell, both fairly fast.
Like a penalty for the 101 for causing a collision on lap 7. I'm wondering if it's that incident we just saw earlier.
Well, no, because it's 12 laps already. Lucas is on his 12th lap, so that must have been a while back. But Jay Byrne, that's the Lamborghini of AM.
Yeah, so it's looking like they've decided to pit, so maybe they have hit the wall, decided to pit, refuel, perhaps put some fresh boots on and go back out, as they will be exiting in the middle of traffic, and I think that is lap traffic that they're going to be getting out in, so that is not ideal for that 101 car. As Lucas Keys now rapidly catching the 97 of Paul Kranich. As Paul Kranich goes off track, perhaps lets the leaders through, or perhaps did a small mistake there, but I think Lucas would have been happy about that one. He didn't have to catch him, let's say, around turn 10, turn 11, where there isn't really much space to let lappers through. But he's now safe. He's got some clean air, but he does have the number 4 also ahead of him. So lap traffic definitely playing a big part of this, as it's definitely
it is starting to get dark. Yeah,
it's very dark as we see the
Perkins again.
The BMW of Perkins spinning again. So let's look at Perkins not having the best time in the world at Kyalami.
Yes, Perkins again. Yeah, they haven't pitted yet for the damage, so hopefully they'll do that soon. Oh, good, Glenn. Thank you very much for hosting our beautiful eyes tonight. As Perkins, yeah, they're doing a really good job managing to keep it on track. You know, they're P21 after having crashed during formation lap and driving with that damage. So, wow, it looks like almost half the grid has pitted now. We've got Dylan McDowell, Cameron Thistlewaite, Johnson, Yao, Lee, Basinski, Wood, Kranich. Everybody's pitted. Now we just have to watch.
It's looking like we've got about 11 drivers maybe that have pitted.
Yeah, that's almost half, okay? 33 drivers. Actually, that's a third. You're right.
I wasn't making a remark to what you said. I was just counting. But that does give Lufty now back up into P14, but obviously Lufty has not pitted yet, so they're really going to have to press on that accelerator and really start setting some fast laps to gain some time back. But obviously Lufty, now that some of the cars in front of him have pitted, he may have some clean air and will have faster times, obviously, as we see the Lamborghini of Stephen Town now getting on the rear bumper of Frustock. Now I'm wondering if Frustock is actually going to try and battle this, because Frustock has not pitted and they do have a 10-second penalty, as Frustock looking like they are moving out the way and letting the Lamborghini through, so they know it's not their fight. It's not worth battling that position. It's better to save the tires and perhaps fight a car like, let's say, Ashley Vediger, which is not far behind as well, so it's not ideal for Frustock, especially with the 10-second penalty, so they are really going to have to try and find some time here and build a gap to the Mustang of Ashley Vediger. Now, if we remember correctly, Ashley Vediger, last race, I thought it was hardware failure, but it was a VR problem. So they had a problem with their VR headset, as they do drive in VR, and that's why they had to retire from both races, I think, as Stephen Ty goes very wide onto the grass, lucky to keep it on track. Obviously, in the wet, you do not want to go off track, as it is very, very slippery, but so far Stephen Ty has managed to keep it on track.
I wonder how many positions he's going to gain from this undercut, because, as Holmesy is also pitting, he's currently P8. We'll have to see where he ends up, as Stephen Ty is approaching Crocodiles now. I'm not sure. How big is the pit lane for Kyalami? Is it massive? Is it medium? It ain't Spa.
It's definitely not Spa. It's not massive, but it's not small either. There's small pit lanes, like a medium-sized pit lane. And from that comment earlier you said about Stephen Ty, if they're gonna gain positions, the only problem is they had to pass a couple cars on track, which obviously will cost them some time. So I'm not sure if that is the best strategy, especially since they're going to have a very heavy car with putting fuel, because they had to put fuel in the car. So we'll have to see when the guys ahead do end up pitting. Currently, Jonesy is in P14. He's now going to have to pass the Nissan of Jaden Rondinella. Now, Jaden Rondinella and Jonesy, I think, are talking to each other, so they are good friends, obviously. So I think Jaden won't be fighting that one and will let Holmesy through. Same for Jeff Code. I don't think they'll be fighting. So if Joe Holmes is lucky, he'll be able to get through cleanly without losing much time. So we'll have to see as we see 22 currently with a massive gap. So Lucas Key still leading the race. I'm wondering if Felipa did end up pitting, but she is nowhere near Lucas Keys as she is indeed in the pit. So Felipa looking like perhaps going for the 50-50 strat and decided now it's the time to pit. Perhaps going for the undercut on Lucas Keys, but now let's see if Lucas has a reply to Felipa pitting.
I wonder what this is going to make the Babby Lele battle. How will it affect that? Because we also, as Lucas, going a bit, we're just exploring the terrain. You know, no one man's lie.
But look at this. If you look at the track map, Felipa currently exiting the pit lane, as we do have a McLaren on the grass. So they're still off track, and that's Lucas through. Ooh, that was pretty close. But as we go back to Felipa, she has gone out in the middle of traffic, so that is not ideal, especially for that battle in the lead, because Lucas does have mostly clear track ahead of him, and all these cars ahead of him are going to be blue flagged. So I'm wondering if that was the good call for Felipa to pit now, because she is going to have to fight through some traffic. Obviously, these guys ahead, unlikely to fight for position, but it's still an obstacle that she will have to go through and will still most likely cost her time. So I think Lucas Keys, if I have to make a small guess there, will have a significant gap to Felipa when he does end up pitting.
Well, no, as long as everybody in front of Felipa pits immediately right now so that she can get all the passes done while they're all in the pit lane, she'll be fine.
Yeah, that would be the ideal circumstances, but even then, as we see, she is behind the Nissan of Lufti. Now Lufti and Lucas are good friends as well, and they're probably in a cult, so I'm wondering if they're gonna be a bit cheeky there. Lufti probably not really going to fight it, but he's probably gonna try and make it difficult for her, but we'll see what happens, because I think it is a bit naughty to use quote-unquote team strategies to hold up another driver.
Yes, Tim, that's called collusion, and it's illegal.
I think it is, yeah. But let's see if he is a bit cheeky.
Luffy's top go 30 for collusion. We can't prove it, but get in there anyway.
At the same time, he does not have to move over for Felipa. As he's looking down the inside of that green Ferrari, but does not make it stick at Felipa. Looking around the outside of Lufti, but will not make it stick. But that is not a good position for her to be in. It's a really, really bad position, actually, because even if she does manage to get past Lufti, she gets a bit sideways there. She still has two Ferraris ahead of Lufti to get past, as it is really, really getting dark now. I think perhaps towards the end of the race, maybe in about 10 minutes, we may get some actual nighttime conditions, as she is going down the inside. And yeah, it looks like Lufti did lift a bit and finally lets her through, as she now has a couple Ferrari to go through, as Lucas Keys does end up going in the pits now. So let's keep an eye on that battle, because I am really curious of how far ahead he is going to be from Felipa, as he does have to spend 25 seconds in the pits. Doesn't matter how much fuel they put in. He could be putting in 5 liters. He's still going to have to spend 25 seconds in the pits. So we'll see the gap he's had on Felipa, or perhaps Felipa making the undercut stick. I highly doubt it, as she is now going through Crocodile, and Lucas now off the air jacks, going through the pit lane, and it's looking like he's going to be well ahead of Felipe Bakita. That is, as we see, a Ferrari going off at Cheetah. But yeah, now Lucas Keys well ahead of Felipe Bakita. So the overcut, technically overcut, as he was ahead of Felipe, did work, and he's now got a big healthy gap from the number, I think, 326 BMW. So that is a bit of a heartbreak for Felipe. Although there is still 28 minutes of this race happening. Lucas could still do a
And
mistake.
they're still P1, P2. If, you know, once everybody serves their pits, they are still P1, P2. So it still could go either way.
Yeah, it could still go either way. Now, wondering what Hignett is going to be doing, because Hignett does have the provisional lead. Obviously, they have not pitted, so once they pit, they will lose the lead. But Lucas Keys, a lot of clean track ahead of him, so he's definitely gotten a bit more luck with his pit stop than Felipe, as I think she is still going through traffic. So,
oh no, Marsh has sped in pit lane as Babby goes super wide. Babby just went completely off. Oh no, it's a pit stop. No, you see, it's all part of Babby's calculated perfect plan.
that was the ideal pit entry, and definitely not a mistake. He definitely meant to do that, as we're
It's a scenic route.
It's definitely the scenic route. But yeah, Babby now in the pits as we're on board with Benjamin Hignett. Lele not looking like they're close. In fact, Hignett looking like they've built the gap on Ashan Lele. And if I remember correctly, I think Lele was in front of Hignett. So
yeah,
it looked
Lele
like at some point Hignett did manage to pass Lele and has built a bit of a gap to Ashan Lele.
Babby and Rondinella both pitting now. We'll have to see if Hignett, they all got to pit soon. It's been 20. Well, they don't.
As
but
we see the gap between Felipe and Lucas Keys now 12 seconds. That is a massive gap for her to close against Lucas Keys. And Lucas Keys probably one of the last drivers you want to try and catch up, as he is extremely quick. But yeah, definitely has the work cut out for her. So the only hope she has now is if Lucas Keys does do a mistake, because I have to say that there is still 26 minutes for her to close that gap to Lucas. Lucas could still be catching traffic, and yeah, the number 26 has spun. So a lot of these drivers really struggling in these conditions, and now it's really starting to get dark. So that's,
yeah, it's just getting harder to. Yeah.
The RNG curve by Cheetah. Once again,
nope.
It's scenic calculated pit entry for Benjamin Hignett. So now it's two Ferraris decided. You know what? Yeah, now's a good time to go for a pit entry.
Should I pit yet the curb at Cheetah? I think you should.
As you will have to excuse me. I do have a bit of an emergency, so I'll be 1 minute.
Oh, he's going for a toilet break. Shame him. Anyway, as we're on board with Lele, then we'll be back soon. Now, Lele, provisional pole at the moment, hasn't served their pit stop yet with Aaron Lee and Ben Hignett. Now, we'll have to see how many positions Hignett loses from being in the pits, but I'm willing to bet they're still in the top 10. Stephen Lewis still hasn't pitted yet, but most of the grid has pitted now, and we'll just have to see how the race turns out, as it is getting real dark now. You know, you're blessed to have clean air because you're driving with more fuel now. Your tires are a bit worn, but wet tires don't get worn as easily as dry tires do, so not really worried about that. But man, Kyalami, what a track. And I'm not sure if you guys tuned in for the last Kyalami race. It was about 2 seasons ago. It was also a banger. Quite all 4 splits, rest in peace, split blue, but all 4 splits had a wonderful race. Now, Lucas, 23 seconds to Aaron Lee, no problem there. But Pip, 11.2, slowly. We'll have to see if she makes up any more time continuing on in this. Now, Hignett, P5, still ends up in front of Babby. So that was a fantastic pit stop for Hignett. Holmes, 3 seconds behind, Stephen Ty. You know, most of the pros have gotten back into their respective spots. Stephen Ty is a bit later there, but Hignett with Babby, right? This is going to be another battle. It's a rivalry, you know. 2 Fezzes going at it the night at Kyalami. Lele now pitting. We'll have to see how many positions they potentially lose because it was an overcut. Now, Aaron Lee with the... we'll have to see who does the ultimate overcut instead of the ultimate undercut between Lewis and Aaron Lee.
Righty, John, I am back. Apologies for my small bladder.
Hignett pitted? lost just the positions to Lucas Keys and Pip, still in front of Babby, somehow.
So, yeah, that is good. So, yeah, we were expecting Hignett to lose the position to Lucas Keys. He did have a massive gap, but now we see Ashan Lele going out the pits, and it's looking like they're gonna be able to jump Hignett as Hignett now for the final corner. So it looks like Lele did manage to get past Hignett, so perhaps that is the small mistake that Hignett had at
No!
Cheetah. So
I'm not biased at all.
obviously, if we all know Hignett, he is our second broadcaster. He usually broadcasts our Thursday races, so does have to work cut out for him, but he, as we've seen, he did manage to get past Lele once. Nothing says that he won't be able to do it again, as we see that Pink Aston Martin getting off track again, so they're not having the best time in the world either on the wet Kyalami.
Well, that just goes to show that it's not just the car that makes the race, it's the skill. It's obviously all the racers and everybody watching. But yeah, just showing that what Lucas Keys can do with his Aston and what Clark is trying to do with their Aston as Hignett. Yeah, Clark is definitely blue flagged, so he's gonna, there's also Flappy Hood, so damage there. But Hignett's gonna have to try and get past ASAP if he wants to close the gap to Lele again.
Clark not really moving over, so we see Hignett flashing his blinkers, so probably getting a bit annoyed, saying, please move out my way, I'm trying to get through, I'm trying to catch that yellow and green McLaren ahead of me, as Clark still in the way of...
there we go.
And finally managed to move out the way. Obviously, that corner not exactly the best place for Clark to move out the way. But Hignett looking like maybe a bit annoyed getting stuck behind Clark. But that just gives Lele a bit more of a gap to stay ahead of Hignett. But that was very unfortunate. That is exactly the situation you don't want to be in while lapping another car, is going through a sequence of corners where the lapped car really can't move out the way for you.
Resetting my mouth. Glenn, can we swap to double cameras? Because it seems like YouTube likes that better. As we see Lee finishing the pit stop and coming out. We'll have to see what position they're in, but that is definitely silver P1 at the moment, with Jay Sweeney silver P2 all the way down in P11.
Yeah, Aaron Lee, massive gap to P2 in silver class. As we still see the McLaren of Steve Lewis still not in the pits. I'm wondering if they're going as long as possible and doing a final couple laps pit stop. So we'll have to see, as I think they are the only car that have not pitted yet. Perhaps another car, a car in the bottom part of the grid maybe has not pitted. But
the ultimate overcut of Lewis.
The ultimate overcut, or should we say the ultimate undercut? Perhaps trying to... No, wait, yeah, not overcut. You're correct. Sorry.
Undercut?
I'm having a bit of a brain fart as well, as we're on the double cameras.
Go back to the toilet, Tim.
I don't think I will. As we're back with Benjamin Hignett, it's looking like they are closing that gap very slightly, but there is more lap traffic ahead of them. So these leaders really having to work to get ahead on track. As we're looking, who's that? The Nissan of Aaron Lee also going for that lap traffic and perhaps catching that Ferrari of Babby. So now Babby is under threat from that Nissan, and we all know that Nissan is also very quick in the wet. It's got insane drive out of corners. So Babby not in the clear from that number 62 GTR.
And Josh Holmes not clear of Stephen Tai either.
So a lot of rapid drivers really in a tight battle for what looks to be P6 or perhaps P5. As Joshua Holmes and Stephen Tai are going through turn 2. As we have another penalty for Michael Clark, 10-second penalty for ignoring blue flag. So that was probably the situation we're talking about, where Hignett was right on the rear bumper of that Aston Martin, and they just didn't move out the way soon enough. So I think that is a fair penalty. There were plenty of opportunities for that Aston to move out the way, and they just didn't. So I think Michael Clark has just moved from academies, and if I remember correctly, they were one of the faster guys in the academy. So maybe not used to getting blue flag that much, not used to the blue flag rule, but it is a good learning opportunity for that driver for next time, knowing if they do get blue flagged by a faster driver, is just to move over as soon and as safely as possible.
Yeah, that's just one of the things coming up from Academy. You learn, it's not about getting pace in Academy, it's really about learning racecraft and learning how to race with other drivers as well, which is why Academy is so important for so many people. Like, unfortunately, I have been a bit of a terrorist recently because I've just lost control of my cars in front of other people so many times. But no longer, my friends, you can rest easy. I'm changing cars, much to the detriment of my few people who love the Audi.
Back over the Bentley of Joshua Holmes. And looking like that Ferrari ahead did go a bit wide, and that just gives drive. Unless that Ferrari... No, I think that Ferrari might be a lapped car.
It is lapped. That is the Ferrari of Mars.
That is lap traffic. For a second, I thought that was one of the Ferraris ahead. There's quite a few Ferraris in the split. But nah, that is the green Ferrari of Marsh. As Hignett does get ahead. And looking like Hignett did... not Hignett. Jobs did build a bit more of a gap. To the Lamborghini of Stephen Ty. But it also looks like Aaron Lee did manage to build a gap himself to the Bentley of Joshua Holmes. As they're now within the 1 second barrier of that Ferrari of Glory Babby. So they are going to be within slipstream range. Now it's not going to be very strong, but the Nissan already getting better drive out of corners than the Ferrari is just going to help him that little bit more to just catch up to that Ferrari ahead of him and perhaps pressure them into a mistake or just straight up go for the overtake, maybe down turn 2.
Look at those red hot tips of the exhaust of the flames hopping out. We can really see those clearly now because it's really getting dark. If we hop on board sometime soon, you'll see exactly what the kind of situation they're dealing with is, because it's just the visibility is so much worse when you're behind somebody.
As we have a penalty cleared for car 101, a change to a 15-second penalty. So I think that was the 101 of Clark. So I thought it was a 10-second penalty, but I think
101 is a Lambo.
Oh, never mind. 101 is a Lambo, so apologies, Clark. Did not mean to throw any shade at you. No, 101 is the Lambo, so it looked like they had a 10-second penalty, and it looks like it's just been increased to a 15-second penalty. So perhaps the stewards going back to that incident and decided, you know what, nah, that is much worse than we thought. So they gave it a 15-second penalty, so they're probably not going to be very happy about that, as we're now on board with the Bentley of Joshua Holmes, and we can really see the spray from the car ahead.
No, it's not as bad as I thought. I thought it was going to be worse.
Yeah, it's not as bad, but at the same time, he's not up the rear bumper. And I do think in the replay, it does not look as bad as it does to these drivers. But you can see that, obviously, there's a couple braking markers, so I'm not sure what braking markers some of these drivers use, but if the board does get knocked out, some drivers do end up using the line on the road, and just tiny bit of blur you get from the car ahead, even if it's not very much, it does make it just that bit harder to spot your braking markers, as we now see the Lamborghini, goddamn, the Nissan of Aaron Lee going around another back marker, and very beautiful, no textured BMW. I think that is the BMW of Furstock, if I remember correctly, getting lapped, as looks like they go a bit wide, as we saw in the rearview mirror. But Aaron Lee closing the gap 10th by 10th every lap. He's now 8/10 behind the Ferrari of Glory Babby, and that's also going through back markers. So I think he's really going to start getting time on that Ferrari.
Now, Glory Babby is no slow operator either. Glory Babby is seriously fast, was seriously fast as well last season in the Mercedes. So it's truly impressive seeing Aaron Lee manage to hunt down Babby slowly but surely while he's in a GTR and in silver.
Yeah, obviously, perhaps they marked themselves as silver. They are really finding it with the pros. Same for Jay Sweeney. Jay Sweeney in the middle of that pro pack. Now, we have mentioned multiple times that this split yellow is split SRO. All these drivers in the top 13 actually are very quick operators. The fact that these two silvers are managing to stay within that pack really shows their true skill level. And this potential promotion, it really depends on how they perform in the next upcoming races as well. Obviously, the wet conditions, some drivers are just naturally better in the wet than others. They practice it more. Some drivers just refuse to practice the wet, and I don't blame them. Obviously, the wet not being the most fun conditions from some drivers. They don't like to slide. They want to feel the grip. They want to drive as fast as possible, and that's just not what you really get in the wet conditions. And obviously, fighting the car a lot more with oversteer, understeer, having to be much smoother on throttle. Some drivers just don't like doing that, so they much prefer racing in dry conditions.
As we're on board with Apreciado, P1 for Pro-Am. And it actually looks like P1 and P2 for Am are both above most of the Pro-Ams as well. So you can tell it's just the difficult race conditions and the difficult circumstances that they have to drive in.
And it also shows that Atanayake has really improved ever since he's moved up to the Sprint Series. Obviously, Atanayake, we were racing different splits, but at the same time, we're racing in the academy together. So seeing him improve in the Sprint Series and just getting more pace out of that Aston Martin is pretty good to see. So he's definitely learning a lot racing with these drivers. As we're on board with Apreciado now, hunting that Audi of Kafil Slade. Now, I've been told that the Audi not the greatest in the wet either. So I'm wondering what could happen between these two. There is 12 minutes left to this race.
Now, the Audi isn't really the greatest at anything, but it is fun to drive when you drive it right. And that is something I cannot do, unfortunately. But man, having driven 2 seasons in the Mustang, 1 rookie season and 2 sprint seasons now, and driving the Audi, the adrenaline gets you going so much in that car.
Oh, I really imagine it would do that. As Apreciado very slowly closing the gap, but just not quite enough to make a move on Slady. Slady will also be defending his position. Slady being Slady, he being a pro driver, he knows how to defend his position. He knows exactly where to place the car just to make it as hard as possible for Apreciado to get through. So really what Apreciado will be hoping for is a mistake just like this, as Slady does go very wide there, but that also forces Apreciado to take a very tight line and just not have quite a good of an exit as Slady, so perhaps he did mean to go that wide. As Slady again goes very wide, just making that Audi again very wide. I'm saying wide a lot. Just defending his position, just textbook defense from Slady. He's not making it easy for Apreciado, but I don't think he meant to go on the grass there. That is not the line, Slady, as Apreciado now gets very close, and now within 5/10 down the start-finish line. And we all know how quick that Mustang is down a straight line, so let's see if Apreciado just has the drive to catch up to Phil Slade. As into turn 2 they go. Yes, that is turn 2. That little kick down the straight does count as a corner, and is technically turn 1.
And is literally called the kink. That is the corner name on the track map. It's called the kink, guys.
It's called the kink, yep. So, although personally I wouldn't really call it a corner, you are really taking it flat out. But it is a corner on the track map. It is called a corner in Kyalami, so I will call it a corner.
Oh no, I have to turn my steering wheel 5 degrees to the right. No, it's corner. No, we're still... Some of these... I didn't design the track. I'm not a track engineer, you know.
I will answer the question from David Marsh. Is it a KFC Audi or a Cam? It is a KFC Audi. Colonel is sponsoring that team. He really isn't, but... Obviously, we had Slady had a bit of an incident. He does have a bit of a flappy bonnet. Definitely does not help that car. So I think he is once again, like last week, going to have talking to from Colonel. But he's still in the top 13. He's still within that pro pack. But the car ahead it's barely visible. I think that is the Mercedes of Cameron Thistlethwaite, not having the best race either.
The Colonel is not pleased. The Colonel will take you out the back of the restaurant and talk to you later. Man, I want to make a joke, but I don't think it's PG for the stream, so I'll just hold on to it. I'll tell you guys after.
Yeah, keep it for after the stream. You know, although he does have the flappy bonnet, Preciado not really finding much time on that Audi, so I think Phil really pushing the cars. Preciado maybe outbrakes himself a little bit, but still keeps up with that Audi. Now, this particular corner right there, right where they went through, there is a bit of a puddle, and if you are not careful, it can send the car not where you want it. It's not really a puddle, it's like a stream of water. It does cause the car to aquaplane a little bit, so that's another thing these drivers have to watch out from. It's okay, this lady just have, even with the front end damage, just has better drive than that Mustang.
And also control, because, you know, the Audi is not happy, especially with that damage. It's a very sensitive baby. But Slady's still managing to make it stick, and Apreciado just, he's either going to really have to work for it, or he's just going to relax and just ride this to the end. Because even though he's P14, he is P1 in Pro-Am, and that is very much a fantastic position to finish in, as he maybe outbraked a little bit, maybe Slady braked a little bit early there. But yeah, he's 7 seconds clear of Octane Online, so he doesn't really have to worry about losing a position as well.
Yeah, not just that, P1 in Pro-Am with a pretty big gap to P2, so that will definitely help him in the Pro-Am championship, as he will get more points than P2, as the points are given to the overall finishing position. So even if you're P2 in Pro-Am, so let's say theoretically Apreciado is currently P14 in Pro-Am and Stockton currently P2 in Pro-Am, he'll still get whatever points he can make from P14, while Stockton will make the amount of points he makes from P19. So the bigger the gap to the guy in P2 in your class, the better it will be for your championship. As we're back with Lucas Keys, comfortably in the lead from Felipa. Not sure. Felipa just going down that back straight right now as Lucas Keys goes through Cheetah. So it looks like Lucas Keys has a 15-second penalty, so definitely building that gap. 15-second gap. 15-second gap to Felipa. Felipa will be hoping for Lucas Keys to get a 15-second penalty, so which would mean that she would only have to get 0.5 of a second to win from Lucas Keys. So yeah, obviously 15-second gap, not 15-second penalty. What am I saying? As we're now with Eshan Lely, and Hignett did manage to close the gap to that McLaren. He does only have 5 minutes and 40 seconds to get past Lely, and I reckon he will want to get past Lely. So Hignett really going to push that Ferrari.
Yeah, as long as you keep talking, they'll forget whatever happened like 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago. Short-term memory loss. Now, another interesting thing. P1 and P2 for AM, they may have a battle. We'll see if Ivan Lee can close the gap in these 5 minutes as well, because Apreciado, 4 positions clear of P2 Pro-Am, but Akanayake has Ivan Lee right behind him in position.
Yeah, so Akanayake not in the clear yet from the BMW of Ivan Lee, currently 2 seconds behind him. He does have 5 minutes, so Ivan only has 5 minutes to make that move. As David Mash says, am I okay tonight? Yeah, I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I'm feeling good. Feeling all right. Feeling pretty sneezy. It's now finally dark at Kyalami. Loving this race. There's just so much action going on, you know. It's just hard to keep up with all these drivers. It's just battles all over the field. Battles for P1 and P2. Battles for the mid-pack. Battles for P3. It's just battles everywhere. Now we've got a battle for the lead of AM happening shortly, although there is only 4.5 minutes left to this race. So unless Akanayake does a big mistake, I don't think Ivan Lee's going to be able to get past. And obviously, even if he does get the opportunity, he's going to want to keep it safe, because if they do end up having a collision, it could completely ruin their race they've worked so hard for. As we're back to Benjamin Hick.
You saw that correction. That's just how sketchy Cheetah is in the Fez. Not sure if
Honestly,
you managed to catch it.
Cheetah is sketchy in every corner, especially when you're pushing. You really don't want to be hitting that saucer on the inside, but you want to get as close as possible to it, so it is really a bit RNG. But yeah, he's definitely not an easy corner to do fast. As another, of course, the Mega Drive from Keys. I do agree that is a Mega Drive from Lucas Keys, as he's now 16 seconds ahead of Felipe. So looking at Felipe doesn't have an answer to Lucas Keys.
Now the question is, Felipe did break her brake pedal last week's race. Do you think she's still getting used to the new one?
It is a possibility. I reckon she would have gone the exact same one she's had in the past, unless she's had a reserve brake pedal and decided to use that. So it is. Yeah, that's why she's not in P1. Glenn records now. She's not using a brake pedal, just giving Lucas Keys a sense of hope, a bit of hope for the championship. But as I dare say, I think if she probably has a reserve pedal to use, as like, she is a esports driver. So we're back with Benjamin Hignett. Getting
wide.
Close. He outbraked himself a bit there, so probably trying his best to get past that Ferrari. As did I just say Ferrari again? Nah, the McLaren, Tim. McLaren.
I think you need a beer, Tim.
I don't think I need one. They're really pushing hard in the closing stages of this race. It's looking like they have built a bit of a gap from Glory Babby. Once again, Glory Babby with that fight with Stephen Ty, looking like Glory Babby did manage to build a gap to Stephen, as Aaron Lee still within that 1 second. So it's looking like Aaron Lee's lost a bit of time to Stephen Ty. I think that is the closing stage of this race. A lot of these drivers are probably gonna relax a bit, just take it to the finish. Don't want to ruin your race at the
it's dark.
End. It is very dark now. It was supposed to be this dark from the beginning, but
I had a question, Glenn. Is it still raining? Because obviously it says it's still wet. The weather widget is still raining, but it's just so dark we can't see the rain.
yeah, it's
okay, so it's still raining.
We can't even see the drizzle.
Yeah.
It's only medium rain, so we can't really see the rain. But even then, it is dark out there. Obviously, the temperatures have dropped a little bit, so their tire pressures will be going down.
I can see clearly now. The rain is gone. Well, I'm not that good of a singer, Glenn. We're not gonna get copyrighted. I can see clearly now. The rain's gone.
We're on board with the Tanayaki. Yeah, they can't really see the rain, but obviously the darkness.
There we go.
But I've noticed at Tanayaki, I think that might have been a Kunos thing, but his headlights weren't on. But he would have been told by the AI stewards to turn on his lights. So I reckon that's another Kunos thing. He did not have his lights on, but as now we see, Hignett does have his lights on. Definitely on the back.
Still fighting Lele. He still wants that position.
That is the final lap, so he will have to do something if he does try to get past Lele this lap. Lele will have to do a big mistake, as Lucas Keys now going around turn 10. Again, gaining a second from Felipe Burquilla, now 17 seconds. He does look on the inside. Lele does defend it.
Switchback
going side by side, so it is not over. The Hignett does want this position, as he does have a run, and as they're going down for the S's, and it looks like Hignett on the final lap of the race did manage to go for a pass on Ashan Lele. So completely took the words out of my mouth. I thought these drivers probably would have relaxed a bit, take it to the finish, but Hignett does manage to take P3 from Ashan Lele with a unbelievable overtake, as Lucas Keys now going down the start-finish straight and will take P1 for this race. Well, clear ahead of Felipe Bukita with a 17-second lead over her. That was a bit of a dominant drive from Lucas Keys, as now Felipa going down the start-finish straight, and she will have to do with P2. And if my calculations are correct, I think that is enough for Lucas Keys to take the lead of this championship.
Yeah, there's also 8 more races this season because we decided to do the extended World Tour event this year.
Yeah, so Benjamin Hignett going down for that final lap overtake on a Shanley. What a fantastic drive it is from Hignett, and he'll be very, very happy with that drive, taking the final spot on the podium.
Holmesy getting a bit excited, and yep.
It's looking like we'll have to do with P8, but there's still drivers coming down the start-finish straight. So obviously Aaron Lee taking P1 for silver class. Now Jay Sweeney crosses the line. So it's looking like Aaron Lee did have a massive gap to Jay Sweeney as well. So obviously Aaron Lee out of his own lead, literally, when it comes to classification.
Oh, you dirty. That was a nice one. Aaron Lee out of his own league.
As Appreciado taking the win for Pro-Am, as we now have our AM drivers of Tarindu Atanayake taking the win in AM. Ivan Lee closely follows behind, and that's looking like that race over. Wow.
Yeah, that was a hell of a race.
That was very, very intense race, very intense final lap, especially for the final spot in the position, the podium. So as it goes, our top 3 for the overall for Pro Class will be Lucas Keys taking P1 with the fastest lap of the race, followed by Felipe Guitida, and Benjamin Hignett taking that final spot on the podium with that final lap overtake. In the Silver Class, we'll have a dominant drive from Aaron Lee, well clear of Jay Sweeney in P2, and Wesley Yao taking P3 in Silver. In Pro-Am, we'll have Appreciado, once again, dominant drive for his class, followed by Stockton and Wood. In AM class, the Tarindu Atinayake and Ivan Lee, again, these two in a league of their own, followed by Ashley Vediger. He will be happy with a performance like this, especially from last race. So that was a very intense race. Driver of the day, John, who would you give it to?
For me, it's an obvious Benjamin Hignett for fighting through Babby and Lele and Josh Holmesy, all of that, and still managing to come out on top. He's been driving... Whoa, John Stockton! Okay, he's been driving on the edge for the whole time. Honorary mentions are Felipa for making the overtake on Keys, doing turn 1, lap 1, and then Keys making the overtake back in to get that. And yeah, Aaron Lee qualified high, held it there too, but I think driver for me would be Benjamin Hignett.
Yeah, I can agree with you with Benjamin Hignett. Very fantastic drive from him, especially since he started P5. He did get P3, and I think honorary mention for me is Tarindu Atanayake. What a fantastic drive for him to take AM win.
Yes, both answers did very well. Now, that is it for round 4. I will have to fend for my life in the TeamSpeak now because I cursed Loop-D during qualifying.
Definitely, as we'll be we do have a short break before we're on board with Split Green. My name was Tim Gobe. I would be joining you back in for Split Green, but we'll have to say a sad goodbye to John Gormley as he will be getting replaced by Blake Griffiths.
It's not sad. Blake is a much better person than I am. Bye-bye.
It's not hard to do, John.
Hey.
laughs as I'm running the corners, waiting for the wave to take me across all the borders, riding like the wind, going down without warning. Just ain't enough for me. All the stuff that we've done has been hasted. So many times my trust has been tainted. Line up excuses, it's all overrated. It leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. What are you waiting for? Get up and get it done. What are you waiting for? The journey's just begun. Ashes and I'm crossing the waters, breaking all the limits that I'm pushing it harder, striking every match, light it up where it's dark now. Just ain't enough for me. All the stuff that was said has been wasted. So many times my trust has been tainted. Light up excuses, it's all getting gated. It leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. What are you waiting for? Get up and get it done. What are you waiting for? The journey's just begun. What are you waiting for? Get up and get it done. All the stuff that we've done has been hasted. So many times my trust has been tainted. Line up excuses, it's all overrated. It leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. Moment I can't forget, when everyone seemed to let go of integrity and pride. The cheese of a better deal, we sacrifice all ideals for a moment in a life. What can we do to make it right? Hesitation coming around again. Termination of all that we could have been. In a world where no one bothers, it is hard to deliver the truth and ignore the dreams of others with nothing to lose. We struggle against the odds. No one is helping us to make order of this mess. There's a feeling I can't evade that rises when I'm afraid. Will we ever live again? There's so many things that should have been. Hesitation coming around again. Termination of all that we could have been. In a world.
Welcome back everyone to tonight's the second of tonight's action here at Kyalami for Split Green. Tonight I will be hosting you guys. My name is Blake Griffiths and I'm joined in the booth by Tim Go, putting in a double stint. Thank you very much, Tim. How are you feeling after that split yellow action?
Not gonna lie, Split Green's got a lot of work ahead of them to make it just more exciting than Split Yellow, but definitely excited. Let's hope that this race is dark this time.
I think I was listening to you guys. I do think it's a bit of a progression or a transition, if you will, into nighttime rather than just being straight up dark. But oh, never mind. I'm being told that everyone set their watches wrong for the race start, and it started a little bit early. So we'll see what happens with the settings in this one. Yeah, and hopefully it is a little bit darker. I've just eaten crow significantly, but we are already underway for qualifying, and these are going to be some hot laps. So we are already on board with Admiral Name in the 333 McLaren. Just slinging it through the S's, looking relatively planted, looking lovely. Getting all on that on the runoff there, a bit more dangerous than I personally like right now with my 1 hour of practice, but Name a much more talented operator than myself. Not sure why we switched to the other car there briefly when I'm still talking about Name, but that's you know what it is. Yeah, this one, I'm not really sure why we swapped to this one, especially as Name's coming through potentially the most interesting part of the circuit, the crocodiles, and then into Cheetah. What a set of corner names, probably maybe even the best on the calendar, but we are going to get our first benchmark time from our benchmark setter for Split Green, Admiral Name, with a sizable lead in the overall championship right now. And our first time is a 1:46.7, which is good. That is good, I think, to start with. It's a good first lap. Water going to be cleared by the cars as they go around a little bit more. You can see a pretty good example there. Luca Giacomin also very quick, a full second behind there. So Name already on top of it.
Yeah, a 46 for first laps, definitely not slow. That's the times they were setting in a split yellow as well. So Name definitely has a lot of pace in him. As Michael Babb currently 0.6 behind. So currently provisional P2 is 0.6 behind Name. So Name obviously in a bit of a league of his own. In Split Green, he is an extremely rapid operator. But let's see, wet conditions always brings out surprises for everyone. So it's possible that one of these other drivers could be fighting Name for the win.
I mean, there's literally so much that can happen. Like, all it takes is someone just getting a little bit wrong into the first section. We've all seen the car park video. We've all borne witness to that history. This race is definitely not going to be over till it's over. Rain is such an interesting variable to add to such a race, but Name adding the variable of being really good and is 0.6 up on that time that was already pretty darn stellar, if you ask me. So slinging it around the final corner, it's looking like it's up and down, creeping up and down, tippy tap, back and forth, but it looks like it's going to be a lovely 6.4. What do you call it? 0.6 and a little bit extra for Admiral Name. So just fending off all those people that were coming a little bit closer. Damiano Thurcolini actually putting himself into P2 as well. So nicely done. Disha Murray Snow, bloody watching the Octane stream while he's camping. Mate, shouldn't you be like watching the stars or something? But it's nice to have you around.
Perhaps there's a bit of light pollution where they are, so they can't see the stars. But if we keep an eye on P2, you can see that P2 is a second behind Admiral Name. So I'm really hoping there is a bit of battle at the front, because I'm sure Name would like a battle as well. He doesn't want to just be at the front, although a lot of us believe that, he likes to fly away in the distance. One of those drivers just flies away in the distance, hot laps, finishes the race P1. No, I'm sure these drivers, they would want a nice battle to race, because if you've ever hot lapped for an hour straight, you do realize that hot lapping on its own does get quite boring after a while. So really hoping that some of these other drivers have an answer to Name's 46-1. And he's currently run on the Delta, so perhaps did a small mistake. Obviously, less cars in Split Green than Split Yellow, so there's a good chance that the track just has more time to get wet. So we're probably not going to see the times we've been seeing in split yellow. I think only a couple drivers managed to get in the 45s. Split yellow with Lucas Keys doing a 45.3. So let's see. Nave still has a couple of laps to throw in a super banker.
He came very close there, actually. He was only 1/10 down into the final corner, but then losing a little bit. So it looks like there is a bit of time for him to find still. Oh, okay.